So this is part 2. Now we talk about SDN. We'll talk about SDN, what is SDN, and then alternative APIs and Open Daylight. SDN 1.0 was based upon OpenFlow. Basically, the idea came from OpenFlow, and again from this guy, Martin Casado. The idea was that since the computer centralized controller is there, we can program the network any way we want very fast. So the network has become programmable, so he called it software-defined networking. And this took on like anything. And so with that definition, SDN equal to OpenFlow, but that is not the case. And this is the actually one thing I wanted to tell, basically, because most academics think that SDN is OpenFlow. And something that the SDN is OpenFlow, something a standard SDN means a standard southbound API 1 protocol, or something that is centralization of control plane, something that it is separation of control and data plane. None of this is SDN. Why? Because all of these are how to do programmability and not what you want to do. These are mechanisms, and we really need to define SDN in terms of goals and not mechanism, because so I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Now, even Open Networking Forum is wrong on the definition of SDN. Their definition of SDN is the physical separation of network control plane from forwarding plane, where a control plane controls several devices and abstracts the control from forwarding. This is SDN. This is wrong. Why? Because all of these are, again, mechanisms. If you tell me that, okay, if you go left and right, that is SDN, then that you're telling me how to go there, and that kills the whole ingenuity. Really, you should tell me that you have to go to that firework, and then I can figure out my path. Firework is the goal. The directions are not the goal. And this is all, these are all directions. And so if you told me where what SDN is, then everybody would find their path, and their alternatives as to how to do it. So what is SDN? Well, SDN allows you to virtualize anything. Okay, it allows virtualize the network. It allows so that you can use it regardless of where it is located. It allows you orchestrate. What is orchestrate? When you go to an orchestra, there is a guy director with a band. As he waves the stick, the tune changes. 1,000 people with musical instrument change their tune right away, and then he moves it back, and 1,000 people change again. That is called orchestration. And we want to do the same thing in the network so that one person sitting at the computer can change 1,000 devices at once. You can control a lot of devices. Programmability. You should be able to just write whatever you want the computer to do at whatever time or the network to do. Dynamic scaling. You should be able to change the scale from 0 to 100 to 1,000. With virtual networks, you can do that. Automation. You should be able to automate the operation. You should be visibility. You should be able to monitor all these resources, optimize the network, allow multiple people to share it. So we integrate the services. So we didn't talk about service plane, but basically one of the requirement is that all those services, such as load balancer and firewalls, and this should be able to be put into this virtual network. Openness, that it should be so that we can put any plugin. And then unified management of computer networking and storage. So one thing in the past was there are people in the data center who manage the computing part. They didn't know anyone networking. But they knew about all the operating systems. They know about Windows Server, Linux servers, Windows operating system, and so on and so forth. Then there are networking guys who don't know about the operating systems, but they know about networking. They know DNS, they know MPLS, and so on and so forth. And there are third guys, which are the storage people, who know all about fiber channel but have no idea of Ethernet. So we want to change all that culture to a unified culture where one person can control all three: computing, networking, and storage. So this is possible with SDN. But the question is, do we really need OpenFlow for this? So the industry is having a big debate about it. And finally, after a big debate, they went to Open Networking Forum and said that we need some other protocols here. Open Networking Forum said, no, we cannot have any other protocol. So they backed out. They went to Linux Foundation and they started doing Open Daylight Controller under Linux Foundation. And this is how the Open Daylight works. Open Daylight allows you OpenFlow protocol but it also allows many other protocols, PCEP, SMTP, XMPP, BGP, OptFlex. Whatever your device understands, we will program it using that protocol. And so this is particularly good for legacy devices that basically don't speak OpenFlow today, but you want to program them. And there are billions of them. And so the magic is not in this southbound protocol, but in this SAL. SAL is a service abstraction layer, and what it does is, whatever the controllers wants to do, it will convert that command into that protocol. So, for example, if you speak BGP, it will tell BGP how to do whatever that is, right? So this is a difficult layer to write, but once you write that layer, then it can speak multiple languages, and whatever you want to do, it will convert into that language and pass on the command so that your device will do that. Okay? And on the top of this, they have RESTful API and SGI framework. All that means is that the interface here is more like an HTTP interface. RESTful means just like HTTP, where you have only 4 commands: get page, delete page or something, get page, and things like that, right? So 4 commands. So anyways, so with this, you can put any module you want. So basically, this is very modular. And if you come up with another protocol, you can put that. And so this is really the totally open controller. Okay. This is Open Daylight. This is being done by 30 companies. Actually, the number of companies keeps going up, so I don't know the number today. But every company that you know, from Cisco to Juniper to IBM, they're all part of this. And this is totally open, so you can go and download it if you want. And so the work has suddenly moved away from Open Networking Foundation to IETF and Linux Foundation and other places, because Open Networking Foundation is not open anymore. It's closed. They just want to see one protocol through. And so the industry is moving away. So anyway, so this style of SDN is called SDN 2.0, or no OpenFlow protocol, no OpenFlow SDN. No stands for not only. Okay, no stands for not only. This is like no SQL databases. No SQL databases means that they use SQL and other things as well. Similarly here, now suddenly SDN has become multi-protocol. So I wanted to just play on the word open. Now, if you do anything today, you notice that everything we saw was open. OpenFlow, open configuration, open everything, right? Open Daylight, open so on and so forth. Open is selling. Whatever you do, your research, put the word open in front of it. We have our own project called Open ADN, because application development network. So OpenFlow, OpenStack, Open Daylight, Open Access, Open Source. But some things are open like this and some things are open like that. Okay, some things are very open, some things are really not open that much. And so that is the IETF versus Open Networking Forum debate. So there's a lot more going on SDN in IETF, believe it or not, than in Open Networking Forum. Current SDN debate in the industry is what versus how. They are saying that SDN is easy if the control plane is centralized, but do we really need to centralize the control plane? The answer is no. Distributed solution may be required for legacy equipment, and so that is what they are doing. They are working with the distributed solutions as well for legacy equipment for fail-safe operation. Complete removal of control plane may be harmful. First of all, we don't even know where the control plane really ends, because the header is control plane and we don't take it away. We just took away the routing table, and as we start filling those tables, we figured out that, oh, for MPLS I need this, and for this I need that, and so control plane is not fully centralized yet, and not separated yet. So the question is, exact division of control plane between the controller and the forwarders is yet to be worked out. SDN is easy with a standard southbound protocol, and then they argue that you need just one protocol. If everybody spoke one protocol, the world would be easy. Well, if everybody speaks one protocol, the world would be really easy. But who speaks one protocol? If everybody spoke English, that would be nice. But then people speak French as well, right? So the idea is there is no one protocol. There is no one transport protocol. There is no one layer 3 protocol, layer 2 protocols, or layer 4 protocol. And why are we going for one southbound protocol? And so the diversity is a fact of life. There is no one operating system, there is no one processor. And so basically what is happening is that the industry is finding alternatives such that they can get the same effect. The effect is those 10 things. As long as they can get those 10 things, it doesn't matter what protocol you're using. This is what happened to ATM versus MPLS. We were assuming that the ATM will come in, it will give you the quality of service, all the guarantees, and will be end-to-end. But IP guys figured out how to do it using MPLS, and then ATM went away because that worked for the existing devices much better than anything else. And so you didn't have to replace anything. And same thing might happen with SDN. Now, talking about the separation of control plane. So here it is. This is how the separation looks like. These guys have no control plane. Their control plane has been removed. The control is all here. Okay? If they want to do anything, they have to ask that guy. Right? Every little instruction comes from there. This is what centralization of control means. There is no plane here. Okay? This is a centralization of control. Is that this guy tells 5 guys, look, our policy today is not to talk to Iraq or not to talk to Iran or whatever, and the policy today is to talk to Iran, Whatever he says, these 5 guys implement, and they tell their 5 guys, and finally 300 people, million people are either not going to Iran or coming back from Iran or whatever, right? So the policy is implemented. So basically the idea is we are not talking about centralization of control plane. We are talking about centralization of policies. As long as everybody implements the same policy, that's all we need. And that can be done with control plane existing right there. Everybody could have a brain. In fact, there is an advantage of not removing the control plane. The advantage is that if this person dies, these guys will continue to operate making right decisions because they have a brain. Right? So that is where the industry is going, is that, look, we really don't need to remove the brain. We really need to make sure that the brain functions in the policy that we had told them. So basically, all we need is the harmonization of policies, not the harmonization of tables. And in fact, this is micromanagement. Every little flow has to come from there. And micromanagement is very unscalable. Very soon you will overflow your table. Very soon you will run out of the capacity to manage searching in those tables. So with this one, you just tell the policy, you speak OSPF, but okay, make sure that you control, when you compute your table, nobody goes to this room. Okay? And so policies have to be done. Anyway, so SDN is everywhere. SDN now, if you are doing anything just like open, you have to have software defined. So there are software defined switches, software defined routers, software defined data centers, software defined storage, software-defined base stations, software-defined GPS, radios, infrastructure, optical switches, whatever you are making today, make sure it is software-defined. Because that is what is selling. Everybody wants software-defined. It doesn't mean open flow. It means software-defined. It means it is programmable. Means it is you can implement the policy from a central place and so on and so forth. Even the kitchen sink is software-defined. Okay. With that, we move on to OpFlex. Actually, so what we are doing is next is I'm going to briefly tell you why these protocols fit in parallel with OpenFlow. And OpFlex is the latest protocol from Cisco being done in IETF. And then these other protocols, XMPP, SMTP, TCP, are also possible to do the same thing, software-defined networking. OpFlex. OpFlex stands for Open Policy Protocol. Basically, declarative control, the controller tells the policy to the network device, which implements it its own way. So we don't tell them how to do it. We tell them what to do it. So each device, we tell them, look, this is our policy. Okay, if you get a packet, we don't want to forward the packet from X, Y, Z, and that's it, right? And then that device figures out how to do it. So they are defining this protocol. So there is what we call policy repository, which is like a controller, and these are the policy element. These are what we called before forwarding element. So these are the devices, and this is the protocol, which is OpFlex. OpFlex is the protocol that is spoken between the repository and the element. And then there is an observer where you send the notification. So if something happens, you can just tell the observers. Observer can be used for monitoring, management, and so on and so forth. And the policies are communicated using XML, JSON, and binary, and so on and so forth. So there is a way to encode the policies. That is the work that is going on right now in IETF. Okay, and so at least the people who are on this bandwagon, they are saying that this is what we need to do for SDN, is just tell the policy and not the table. XMPP. XMPP is Extendable Messaging and Presence Protocol. And it is extendable because it uses XML, but it is similar to SMTP. You all know what is SMTP, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. In the Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, when you send a mail, it goes to your server figures out the destination server, sends it to them, it stays there until the guy comes in, checks his mail, and they find their mail, right? But XMPP is different from SMTP because in SMTP, you have to pull the mail. In XMPP, it pushes to the client. So the client doesn't have to ask. The server just tells it, okay, you got a message. It's like your text message. When you get your text message, you didn't ask the computer or your phone to get the text message, it just comes, right? And so that is how it works. XMPP is the protocol that is used when you chat, when you do Google+, when you do Facebook chatting, or when you do Skype chatting. Basically, whatever you type appears at the other end right away. Okay? And so presence, basically when you log in first time, that is your presence is noted by the server, and then the server can give you the messages. So this is basically a push versus pull kind of stuff. And it was, so there is a lot of work on XMPP in IETF, and there are lots of implementations available, and it is used in all the places like we said, Skype, Facebook, Google, etc., etc. But it is also used in the data center management. Now, Arista switches can be managed using XMPP, and Juniper has decided that they will do SDN using XMPP. The question is, how can you do SDN using XMPP? This is how you do it. Every element, even the user or the controller or the virtual machine or the virtual switch or the hypervisor or a piece or a physical switch, everything, whether it is virtual or physical, is a client of XMPP, which speaks XMPP to the server. Now, when somebody wants to send a message to somebody, they can just send it. So, for example, if a user wants VM to do something, it sends a text message to the VM. And the XMPP interpreter in that VM can understand what this is and do that. Right? So, as long as everybody understands XMPP, they are all set. Servers already exist, protocols already exist. We just need to put the correct API, correct way, so that when I say something, you understand what I mean. And if we can do that, then XMPP is good enough to program the network. You can ask to do whatever you want it to do. Path computation element is another protocol which can do whatever you want to do. Basically, it was done for MPLS. MPLS path computation requires that you want to get a path which is 10 megabits per second and goes to whatever routers. It's difficult to do in a router. So what they said was, we will have a central controller that will know the whole network state, and then can figure out where you should get this fixed bandwidth path. Right? So in this protocol, there is a path computation element which does the computation of the path, and it keeps it with itself. And the path computation client, which is any router, can ask it, what is the route to New York, not going through Boston, which has 1 gigabit per second link available, and it will give you the path. So they are saying that, well, if this is there, then I can just use it in the data centers or between the data centers or anything like that, and it's much simpler. It's already there. PCE. And so it's basically separates the route computation from the route using route function, and there are many RFCs on this. Forces is another protocol. It was done 13 years ago in IETF. 2001, this is forwarding and control element separation. In 2001, they talked about separating the control element and forwarding element. So the whole protocol exists already. So they're saying we can just go ahead and use that. We don't need to use OpenFlow. In this one, their infrastructure, their definition is slightly different. What they do is they have a number of control element, a number of forwarding element, and then all the control element report to the control element manager, and all the forwarding element report to all the forwarding element manager. And so there are two managers, super managers. And so first, what happens is the forwarding element manager talks to the control element manager, and they authenticate each other. They do the security exchange, making sure that they're not talking to somebody else. And then they exchange the list of CEs and FEs and their attributes. So now the control element manager knows who are the forwarding elements, and the forwarding element manager knows which are the control element manager. Now they assign the controllers to the elements, and then they tell them. So the control element manager talks to each control element and says, look, this is your ID, and these are your people that you can manage. And similarly, the FE manager talks to all the forwarding element and says, look, this is your ID, and these are the controllers that will manage you. And then the forwarding element and the control element can talk to each other and then, exchange all the information. Anyway, so the idea is this was designed with security in mind. Everywhere you see the first thing is security exchange. So they exchange the keys and certificates. And so they are saying that why don't we just use this as an alternative? Clearly there is an alternative for this. And it has many features that is still not there in OpenFlow. For example, encryption, which is not there in OpenFlow, is there. What is happening is the SDN is becoming popular, software-defined networking, and you have to separate it from OpenFlow for sure. Because if you start calling SDN as OpenFlow, then you are going in one direction. But so every group is trying to justify that they can be used for SDN. So there's another group called Alto. They are saying you can use Alto for SDN. So what is Alto? Alto is application layer traffic optimization. This group does optimization of P2P traffic. So basically, the torrent traffic, P2P traffic. The problem with the torrent traffic is that if you want to download something, you really don't know where the other peers are. So you just get whatever list you get, and you can randomly select anybody. You might get somebody in Germany or Switzerland, while there might be other people in Canada which may not be used. So they are saying it's not really good. The right way to do this is that if the carrier, my carrier, AT&T or somebody, could tell me that, look, there are these other people who have the same file that you need, it will be much faster. Much less resources will be used. So they are designing this kind of protocol which will let you ask the carrier, where can I find this file, and let the carriers tell you, this is where you can find the file. Actually, it is not just the file, any resources you want, virtual machines. It can be extended to any resources you want. You could ask for virtual machines, networks, links, VPN, whatever you want to do. So they are extending Alto to be able to do SDN. Okay, it already has things like constraints on resources, that bandwidth, and so you can take care of all those resources constraints and decide that this is the right path. So the summary of this part is that SDN is the framework to automatically manage, program a network. It started with OpenFlow, but that is just the beginning, not the end. Now there are many, many contenders, and the industry is moving off to Open Daylight kind of modular system, where you can put any protocol as the southbound protocol, as long as you can have this SAL for that, the translation. You can be part of the controller, and you can control your network of the old devices. So the Open Daylight controller is the leading open source controller project under Linux Foundation. and its modular design allows multiple southbound protocols. Okay. Any questions about SDN? Now, here's the thing though. If you see papers on SDN, they will not use any of this because the papers are very carefully controlled by OpenFlow guys. All the conferences which are on SDN, they are very carefully controlled. So they only let you publish OpenFlow on SDN. And that's why most of the academics are in one world where they really don't know about much of this, what is going on in the industry. And so you see all the papers which say SDN, they really mean OpenFlow. Okay? If you take the word remove the word SDN and put the word OpenFlow, that is what they're writing about. But instead of calling it OpenFlow, they generalize it to SDN. SDN is much more general, but it can be done with any of these other protocols. And basically one definition, one sentence summary of SDN is something that you can change the policy instantly. Basically, you can program the network, change the policy instantly. And so there are many ways to do that. Any question? Comments? Disagreements? No. All right. Then we move on to NFV. NFV is Network Function Virtualization. By the way, does everybody have the slides? Anybody needs the slide? None. Okay. So we'll talk about what is NFV and what is relation to SDN and what's HC doing on this. NFV, as you see already, is Network Function Virtualization. And so the idea occurred to the carriers that, okay, we want to reduce the cost. The best way to reduce the cost is to not use a specialized hardware that we are using today. Just, we are using very special routers, switches, this and that. We can just take a PC, a general computer, and put a program into it to do that. Okay? This is called white box implementation. White box implementation, that box has nothing, no real functionality. It's a very standard thing, and the software has the functionality. Second thing it occurred to them, that why do it in a physical box, why not in a virtual machine? If we do in a virtual machine, then everything will become a cloud. And so in the cloud, we can have things like IMS, EPC, BRAS. These are all VMs that you can download from some place, and then you can put it together in a cloud, and you got your whole carrier systems. Right now, to put all that together requires buying a lot of stuff from different companies. And so we can get rid of all that, and we can just do VM implementation of this. So that is why it is called virtual function virtualization, sorry, network function virtualization, using the cloud for carrier stuff. And so with NFV, if you put everything in the cloud, then what can you do? Well, you can virtualize everything. You can create, if you need, let's say you are talking about IMS. If you have a lot of multimedia traffic, you can put 2 VMs. If you have more, you can put 3 VMs, 5 VMs, and when you don't have, you can cut it down to 1. So it is virtualizable, scalable. Orchestration, if it is in the cloud, then you can, sitting at one place, you can program it today. I mean, when you get it on Amazon Cloud or something, you can just change things sitting on your terminal. It is programmable, it is scalable, it is automated, it can be automated. Visibility, and you can just get all the reports. Performance, you can optimize the network performance, and multi-tenant. Clouds are multi-tenant. So you can get almost everything, basically, if you have the VM for that. So they said, this is exactly the reason why we needed SDN. So why we are waiting? SDN will take some time to come, but this we can do right now, NFV. So the question is, what is the relationship between NFV and SDN? So when the first paper was written on NFV, at that time they said, well, we need SDN for some things, such as network programmability, but we can do most of the other things right now. But when the second version of the paper came out 1 year later, they said they didn't have the word SDN in it. So they think they can do it without SDN. So that's the idea, is that NFV and SDN are somewhat complementary. You can do one you can do both. You can do SDN alone, you can do NFV alone, you can do NFV and SDN. One does not depend upon the other. So while SDN is future, because SDN is still being done, NFV is here. So today you can, if you wanted to, you could do it. But actually it is not here yet, because right now it is all paper. As you will see, there is some implementation, but there are no standards, real standards yet. So what are the functions that can be virtualized? You can virtualize a switch, virtualize a router, you can virtualize home location register, you can virtualize SGSN, GGSN, CGSN, RNC, serving gateway, PGW, residential gateway, broadband remote access server. Any of these functions can be virtualized. Yeah. It could be literally what will happen? Okay, that's a very good point. I'm going to talk about that. Okay, so the question, the comment was that there are some latency issues. Please correct me if I'm wrong. There are some latency issues in many of these functions, very strict latency constraint, and you may not be able to get them in the cloud. Is that correct? Yes. And so that is a concern, and that is being addressed by ETSI as well, by these people. So basically what happens in the cloud is the performance you get depends upon how much resources you put in. So suppose you put in just one VM, maybe it will not be able to handle much. But if you need more in the cloud, the advantage is you can put more. You can put 10 VMs, and maybe the latency will become lower. And if it doesn't help it, maybe you can do 100 VMs. Maybe latency will become even lower, maybe it will not. So this is an important concern which many carriers have raised, is that can we meet latency with this general purpose hardware? The answer is we don't know yet. But it's a valid concern. Many people can argue on either side. One can say, well, it is scalable, so you can just put as much resources as you want, but it is quite possible that maybe too much resources will not help, right? But the thing is, scalability is what saves you here, is that there's no limit to the virtual machines that you can create. If, let's say, if we put it on Google Cloud or Amazon Cloud, you know, I mean, you could get 10,000 VMs if you wanted for one function.
So for some of its functionality, you would need a network resource view, right? And then if people are independently implementing all of these, and like, how do I get a view of network, right? And
yeah. Okay, it's coming up. Just hold on to that part. What about the network? So these are all pieces, point, you know, VMs. How do you connect them? I will talk about that in a minute. So ETSI, these carriers, they decided to go to ETSI rather than go to IETF or go to ITU or go to ONF. They decided, and the reason is because ETSI is basically was simplest way to do there and fastest way to get there. So ETSI has put together 4 committees, one for architecture of infrastructure, INF, one for management and orchestration, one for software architecture, and one for reliability. 4 working groups, and they have 2 expert groups, one for security and one for performance. So this is all very new stuff. They just started in October 2012. This is not even October 2014, so like 18 months ago. And they have come up with 4 documents, 5 documents, which are public. You can download them from here, where you can use NFV, what is the architectural framework, what are the terminology, what are the requirements, and proof of concepts. I'm going to just give you a brief summary of each of these 5 documents. So first of all, NFV defines some concepts. So you could have a network function. We had a big list of functions, right? So there is a virtual counterpart of it. So you could have virtual counterpart, virtual function, VNF. VNF is the virtual NF. And so you have this VNF, VNF, VNFs. When the packets come in, they go to VNF1. Then from there, they can go either to this box, where they could go through VNF 1 and 2 and then get out, or they could go VNF 2A and 2B and 2C and then get out. So this is called flow. This is called forwarding graph, VNF forwarding graph. This is VNF set. So you can have a virtual function, and then you can have a set of virtual functions, which could itself is a virtual function. And this is a set, which is another virtual function. And you have a flow, which flow graph, forwarding graph, which tells you how the packets go in that function. And then you have the hardware, which implements all this, right? So this is the real routers and switches and PCs and whatnot you have there, right? So this is their architecture now. So the architecture diagram looks as follows, that you have physical hardware, which is computing hardware, storage hardware, network hardware, all of this is physical. Then you put virtualization layer on the top of it, which is like OpenStack. Then you get virtual computing, virtual storage, and virtual network. Now you can start assigning it to virtual functions. So here is VNF1, this is VNF2, this is VNF3. Each of these has to be managed. So we have EMS1, EMS2, EMS3, element management system. And on this side, we have this, on the top of that, we have the operations and support system. So this is their OSS, which exists now. And on the side, we have orchestration. So if you want to control thousands of these VNFs, you need orchestration. And that can talk to VNF managers. Each of these VNF has this EMS. So there is a VNF manager. And then you need the infrastructure manager. This is the company which holds the cloud. They have their manager, which controls these resources. So what Etsy is doing is that they have put this diagram together, and they need to specify the interfaces or the APIs. And they call it reference points. So there is a reference point which allows OSS to talk to this box. There is a reference point which allows orchestrations to talk to VNF manager, which is called ORVNM. There is a reference point which allows orchestrations to talk to virtualized infrastructure manager, which is called ORVI, and so on. So they have identified these 9 reference points, but they have not been standardized. So soon, and when they are done, basically they will have some specifications for these reference points. And once they are done, then you can buy VMs from any vendor and put together your system very fast in the cloud. Just like today, if you go to Amazon and you can say, well, I want 5 VMs and then put 3 on Windows and on 4 put Linux version, this and that. These are all VMs which are already existing in Amazon, and you just pay for them, and they are installed for your computer, for your network. Similarly, these other things will be VMs that will allow you to be put there, and if the interface is standard, then they can talk to each other. Now, they have not done the standards, but they want the standards to be such that they are portable, high performance, elastic, resilient, secure, and allow the service to be continue after a failure. So these are all good things, and basically Apple, and like we say, motherhood and apple pie, we want them to be really good. But this is all a currently written requirement, not that they have a system which does all of this. Continues. Service assurance, energy efficiency, transition is smooth, and the service models so that the one operator can use other operators' model. And that's really important, is that once the VMs are standard, then it doesn't really matter who owns the equipment. Everybody can use it. Where can you use these things? Well, you can use it in the let's say in the mobile. If you have virtual mobile core network, you can use virtualization of base stations, you can use virtualization of CDNs, and so on and so forth. The idea here is that if everything is virtual, then somebody could own the physical resources, and a lot of people could share it. Whether it is a base station or whether it is a IMS system or whatever it is. So there could be a lot of carriers who do not have any physical infrastructure, but they have virtual infrastructure, right? And they could be doing same thing for CDNs or clouds or anything. And the next thing they have done is proof of concept, and this is important because they have shown that this is possible. So British Telecom has implemented a virtual broadband remote access server. Deutsche Telekom has implemented an IMS. Orange Silicon Telecom has implemented EPC, Evolved Packet Core, and so on and so forth. So there are many proof of concepts. Now these are not public, these are not open, you cannot download them because well, for whatever reason right now these are all proprietary, but they have shown that yeah, we can do it. These can be virtualized. So this is the kind of thing which will answer the question whether you can do it with the latency or not. And so it could be possible with, as they virtualize many functions, they will find out that some functions cannot be virtualized. All right. In particular, I would have been kind of suspicious of IMS. That is where latency is kind of critical, multimedia systems. But they have done it and they're happy with it. So it looks like this is feasible. Standards are not there yet, so you cannot really implement this right now. I mean, you cannot just take everything virtual and put it together because they will not talk to each other, but they're working on it. Now, one of the things is, feature here is that, okay, you can have virtual machines, but how they talk to each other? That's the question you asked, right? So the thing is, there are several issues here. This is called service chaining. So you can put some functions in this cloud, some functions in this cloud, some functions in this cloud, and connect them together. But you need the bandwidth and the resources to connect them. And if you change these number of these boxes here, the bandwidth required may change, right? It may be less or more. Today, there is no technology which allows you to do that. You cannot go to AT&T and say, well, I want a link which I can change from 10 megabit to 100 megabit. Sorry, you can't do that. You just tell me how much you want. And once you told them 100 megabit, you have to pay for 100 megabit whether you use it or not. That's your problem. And so programmable networks don't exist. Not the programmable carrier networks don't exist. And second thing is, in this environment, where you put the thing in which cloud really depends upon the network than anything else. It doesn't depend upon the cloud, because if this connectivity is 100 megabit, you cannot create 200 megabit there, right? So you cannot put certain things here. You have to put it somewhere here. And so this is a research topic. We are actually working on that research topic, service chaining. IETF is working on that research topic. IETF has a SFC working group, Service Function Chaining Group. And so the problem there is this whole thing, somehow bringing network into this picture. Okay. And the work that we are doing, actually, we are saying that we really don't want to just do it for networks, because any function virtualization, any other industry, whether it is banking industry, stock market industry, or anybody else, they would find all this work very helpful, because they can have their own VMs. Every industry would have special functions that they can identify, and they could have standard VMs. And then if they can solve the chaining problem, then they can just create that company in a minute. Basically, you could create a bank in a minute. You could create a stock market broker in a minute, because you just go to Amazon and say, well, I'm going to open a stock market brokerage today. Give me this. You order it, and it's there, right? That will basically be like app market. Everything is available as an app, although it is not $299, it is $29,000 each. But you can just quickly get it standard and put it on the cloud, and you have it going, right? So this will happen in the future once you figure out all these service chaining issues. So that brings us to the end of part 3. The summary of this part is that NFV, Network Function Virtualization, aims to reduce the OpEx by automation and scalability provided by implementing network functions as virtual appliances. So basically, carriers have identified a set of functions, and they want to create virtual machines that can execute those. Once they can do that, then they can put it into the cloud. And it allows all the benefits of virtualization and cloud computing, including orchestration, scaling, automation, and all of this exists today, right? I mean, like cloud computing exists today. NFV and SDN are independent and complementary. You can do either or both. That is the third thing. is that really SDN is required, but mostly for that service chaining stuff. Right now, if you want to make this network programmable, you need some kind of programmability. NFV requires a standard of reference points and interfaces to be able to mix and match DNF from different sources. Right now, you cannot get DNF from different sources. Actually, probably you cannot get DNF from many sources. There are only few companies which are giving few DNFs. NFV can be done now, and several of the virtual functions have already been demonstrated by the carriers. So there are proof of concepts. Okay. Any questions about NFV? Yeah. Are there any network functions that cannot be done by NFV? Well, that is a similar question to him. So what is going to happen? We don't know. Basically, as this thing moves, people will implement more and more functions in virtual machines, and then they will figure out that there is something which cannot be done virtually. We don't know that yet. So right now the answer is no, but I mean, like, it can change. And clearly the issue is latency, because throughput can be done by scaling. Latency is not clear that you can just do by scaling. Any other question? If not, then we end the tutorial. The key summary, 6 points. First, there are 4 planes of networking: data, control, management, and service. Data are the user bits. Control are the essential bits that are required in addition to the control bits, in addition to the data bits, to be able to do network operation. Management are the optional bits that are required for FCAPs, fault, whatever, accounting, etc., etc. And the service plane is those extra services that in middle boxes that we insert. OpenFlow separates the control plane and moves it to a central controller, and the forwarding element just uses the tables. SDN is the framework. Now, SDN is not OpenFlow. SDN is the framework to automatically manage and control a large multi-tenant network. All right, so if anything can do that, that is SDN. OpenFlow originated the SDN, but now many different southbound, northbound APIs, intermediate service tools are being discussed and implemented by the industry. So now you can see in the list of protocols, southbound protocols was very big. Then if you want to do any SDN controller stuff, you should really go with OpenDaylight. That is the controller of the future. That is the most general controller. Don't get stuck with one controller which just is one protocol. And then NFV, the 6th message is about NFV, that the 6th NFV says that the carriers can virtualize their functions and use cloud as their real infrastructure.